Spoiler alert! I will tell important spoilers of Dragon Ball Z, Kung Fu Hustle, Lord of the Rings, and The Matrix. You've been warned. I frickin' love action scenes. Nothing gets the adrenaline pumping like a solid cinematic fight for survival. But this got me thinking, what makes a good action scene? Why do I get so into the one, but the other bores me even though they might use similar tricks? As I analyzed the scenes I personally enjoy, there were a total of 6 things that stood out to me. So here they are, the top 6 things that make a good action scene. Keep in mind, these are just personal preferences of what I like to see, not basing my opinion on what others had to say. Nor does it mean all these points apply to all good action scenes ever made, all the time. These are just things that I noticed that play a part in action scenes I think are great. Let's not waste any more time and start the list. Number 6. Established logic. Every movie has its own logic. I don't look at a realistic action movie the same way I look at an absurd superhero movie. In my experience, both realistic action and ridiculous over-the-top action can be a ton of fun. It's not a matter of which logic you use, but it's how you present your logic. One of my favorite movies of all time is Kung Fu Hustle for its hilarious absurd comedy and spectacular cartoonish fights. This movie makes it very clear you're dealing with a silly movie, making the unrealistic fighting scenes later on not bothersome, because they don't contradict established logic. However, if you were to present your movie as a realistic drama, but drop the realism down the line, it's a bad thing. It looks like a realistic movie, but then characters do all kinds of things that have zero realism to them, making it despicably strange. The Die Hard and Lethal Weapon sequels also received mixed reactions on their action scenes because the first movies established a realistic take on action, making the more over-the-top approach of some of the later movies too different. It can also be the other way around. A movie may present itself as silly. The hero seems to survive every attack without a worry, but suddenly a seemingly weak attack can fatally wound him, making you question why this attack works, but others don't. This was especially a huge plot hole in the Broly movie of Dragon Ball Z. Broly doesn't seem to be hurt by pretty much any attack thrown at him, but a single strong punch seems to instantly kill him for some reason. In order to make me accept and appreciate the action, I need to have a good understanding of how the world works, on how different types of attacks affect the characters, and whether the movie is consistent in these established rules. Number 5. Intimidating enemies and smart heroes.
You can't hide from me. There you are.
This is pretty straightforward. It's hard to take an action scene seriously when the enemies or heroes are just plain dumb. An enemy needs to oppose some kind of obstacle, some sort of threat, even if it's a small one. If the hero can mindlessly shoot tons of enemies without a worry in the world, it doesn't generate any adrenaline or thrill. It can be funny if it's used for jokes, like with cheesy Schwarzenegger or Stallone movies, but not epic and spectacular in my opinion. The perfect example of this are stormtroopers from the Star Wars movies, who never ever seem to hit anything they aim for. There never was one moment in Star Wars where I felt the slightest bit of adrenaline or suspense whenever our heroes encountered stormtroopers, because you know they don't form a threat, making the gunfights against them rather dull. The agents from The Matrix, on the other hand, are incredibly intimidating. The movie makes it very clear these are tremendously strong enemies you should avoid, making a confrontation with them all the more epic. The same goes for the heroes. If the hero makes dumb decisions, it's harder to cheer for them later on. Again, Dragon Ball Z is a good example of that, where they let the villains transform even though they might overpower them and destroy the Earth. One Punch Man even made a funny joke about this trope.
これが一番効率よく一網打尽にできると判断したのですか。
いや、そうだけどさ、相手もいろいろ準備してただろうに。えげつないな、お前。
While it's not the most important aspect of action scenes, I noticed that fights with a smart or strong enemy are usually better than the ones without. Number 4. Rawness and realness. This one solely applies to live action. Looking at actual actors putting themselves in danger with epic stunts or making a complex dance out of a fistfight is awesome to see, because you know what you're looking at is real. It's not an animated fight where they can let the characters do anything they want without any risk, but these are real people who put themselves in danger, sometimes even life-threatening danger. In Mad Max Fury Road, one of my favorite action movies of all time, you're not looking at actors in front of a green screen. You're looking at actual cars driving and stuntmen performing some ridiculous and dangerous stunts. What do you do when you want a guitar player performing on a moving stage with a heavy guitar that shoots fire? You make an actual moving stage on the cars and let an actual professional guitar player carry a heavy guitar that shoots real flames. Because why the hell not? Let's not forget one of the grandmasters of the action genre, Jackie Chan. He broke pretty much every bone in his body at some point during his career. We see him dancing on the edge of death on numerous occasions, or perform some insane fistfights that took serious skill to pull off. Not to say animated fights are always worse because of these, but it's simply not the same as seeing real actors in action. When I see a live action movie going this extra mile, I think it's worthy of praise. Number 3. Cinematography and editing.
That is hilarious.
This one is also pretty straightforward. You can have a very creative idea for an action scene, do all the stunts right on set, but if you were to film it poorly or edit it sloppily, it can ruin the scene. Something I notice in some action movies is that they tend to have a ton of fast cuts to create a feeling of chaos, or in certain cases they heavily rely on the shaky cam. It certainly is chaotic, but this way I'm not able to follow any of the action. This works in movies where the action isn't the main focus, and the chaotic feeling is an artistic choice solely there to make you experience the intensity the character is going through. But if the movie is focused on the spectacle of the action, this can be a huge pain. I mean, how can I enjoy the action if you cut the shot every 2 seconds, or they shoot the fight with too much close-up and the cam that shakes as if it was held by a monkey? Some examples of how to do it right that stood out to me were the first boxing match in Creed and the train fight in Sucker Punch. These are both done in one long epic take. In Creed, it feels like you're standing next to the boxer, experiencing every second of the match alongside him. Every time when you expect them to cut away, it holds the shot, which is really impressive for a scene like this. In Sucker Punch, it switches between multiple characters in an over-the-top action scene, but it's done very smoothly, and it perfectly knows how to show and how long to show it, which makes it such an awesome thing to watch. Another outstanding example of how to do it right is the movie Hero, where every action sequence is shot and edited so beautifully, it's a true work of art. It's hard to find the right balance between editing and how to properly shoot the scene, because it can either make or ruin a scene. Number 2. Sense of struggle. In my opinion, one of the most important parts of a good movie is getting a sense that the character accomplished something. A good action scene needs to be a struggle, a risk, a test for the character to show his or her skills. If a character just shoots everyone without a worry in the world, slaughters tons of enemies without breaking a sweat, or never seems to experience any pain even though they're in a scenario where they should receive a lot of pain, it removes all the suspense of the action and all the weight of the fight. This makes it hard to get sucked into the fight for survival because there was no real fight. You know nothing is going to hurt the main character, so why would the next enemy be any different? For example, in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle sequel, where the turtles sit in a plane that crashes in the water and then falls off a waterfall, but it doesn't hurt them in any way? How am I supposed to give a crap anymore after this? I may have criticized Dragon Ball Z for the decisions of the heroes to allow enemies to transform, but if there's one thing Dragon Ball is exceptionally good at, it's creating a sense of struggle. Every strong enemy either seriously injures, kills, or sucks a ton of stamina from them. During a serious fight, they bleed, need to stop to gather strength, or they might pass out altogether.
What did you think, huh? That I was gonna roll over and die from an attack like that?
Because of this, I always cheer for them to get back up again, and it feels tremendously satisfying when they finally, after all the struggles they've been through, get in that finishing blow. Mad Max Fury Road also does this exceptionally well, where Max needs to gather a ton of strength to get the energy to fight back due to the intensity of the situation he's in. He can be hurt by enemies, he can even lose fights and needs to be saved by other people who are also in peril. There's always the suspense of whether he's able to beat the next guy that attacks him. Or how about the ending of The Matrix, where Neo is completely beat down and it feels like it's all over, but then he gets back up and overpowers the villain, which is pure epic satisfaction. Seeing characters go through these struggles makes them more relatable, more human. It adds more suspense, more drama, and it makes a fight for survival feel all the more satisfying. And the most important part about an epic action scene is story. Okay, it may feel a bit weird to put this on the #1 spot since story may not feel that important for action, but when I analyzed my favorite action scenes, I came to the conclusion that the most immersive action scenes are the ones where you're sucked into the story. I mean, think about it. Do you prefer the opening fight or the epic last stand? Do you prefer a fight against random enemies or an important story part where the hero sacrifices himself to defeat a powerful enemy? YouTube channel Corridor Digital once said something according to the lines of, "A good action scene is the scene that tells something about the characters," which I thought was a very insightful and accurate statement. While I don't think this applies to every good action scene ever, it certainly is a recurring theme. Kung Fu Hustle being a perfect example of this. Every fight in this movie says something about where the character stands in terms of power. First, it starts off with the Axe Gang murdering innocent people, making them seem like the biggest threat. Then the Axe Gang gets overpowered by the villagers, making them feel like the most powerful characters. Then the villagers get overpowered by the musicians get overpowered by the old couple gets overpowered by the main antagonist, and the main antagonist beats down the protagonist, who has been a weak character all movie long. But then the protagonist makes a miraculous transformation that makes him surpass the antagonist. Literally every fight reveals something new about the characters, making it more than just random fun spectacles. Seeing the protagonist getting beat down, only to return and overpower the antagonist, gives the story a sense of progression, and it gives the character development. The miserable failure he was at the beginning is no more. Now he has transformed to a confident hero. When you despise villains, it makes you cheer more and more for their demise, making the emotions high when a final fight takes place. When you love a hero, it makes you want him or her to get stronger and finally achieve their goal. Maybe the action scene is a consequence of an emotional story aspect that drove the character to the fight, rather than something they had no power over. Story is something the good Rocky movies are exceptionally strong at. These movies aren't action films where you see a bunch of random muscular men fight each other in a boxing ring, but they're drama stories about who these characters are and how the boxing match affects their life. There's always a huge build-up to the match, making them more than just a matter of a winning-losing game, but a personal accomplishment after hard work. I could go on, which I wouldn't mind actually, but you get the point. Story can raise the epicness of an action scene to an all-time high, and I think it's one of the strongest factors in a good action scene. So, are there important aspects I missed? Let me know in the comments, and thanks for watching!